All right, so welcome back, everyone, for you guys and gals that have been through these webinars before. Some of you might know me already. My name is Gabe Hernandez. I am a senior specialist with Applied Software, going on about 15 years. I've got some quite a bit of experience in the industry with CAD products since the late 80s, early 90s, and kind of worked my way through all the certifications and all that kind of good stuff. And today we're going to be kind of going over the fabrication, our Revit 2020 features for fabrication. Revit 2020 has been out for a little while now, but there are some updates to the 2020 version, and with fabrication, it doesn't seem like everybody uses the latest and greatest right off the bat because of the way the projects are ran. Typically, the projects are in the older version still. It'll take a couple of years or a year or so before they move into the latest and greatest versions. Some companies are using 2020. It looks like most of you guys in here are using 2020, so that's good. But just kind of, we're going to discuss some of the features that if you're not familiar, or you just moved into it, or you just haven't really looked at the features yet, I'll show you what's been improved and enhanced. Some of the updates, fixes as well. There's an update 2.2 update for 2020. And then the picking and clicking, this is where we're going to kind of get into the Revit world itself and start. I'll show you in the extensions, there's an exporter at the end of the extensions palette or ribbon, and we'll go over that process and what it does and how you can kind of utilize it. And then to kind of fill up the rest of the time, I'll be using, or I'll showing you guys some tips and tricks. Some of it's probably not necessarily new to 2020, but it's new to kind of stuff that I've learned over the last year or so, little tips and tricks that I kind of make me a little bit faster in Revit, and that I try to push to all my clients and students that take my training. So it's be some little productivity tricks here for you guys to kind of see if you can learn some new stuff in Revit. Alyssa, do you want to push the last polls?
Yeah, of course. Here's our next one, and it's, are you considering the move to Revit? And let us know what you think.
So I'll stop sharing and let you, do I have to stop sharing or no?
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me go back to me.
Just let us know. I think we're seeing some answers come in. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, try refreshing your screen. And if that doesn't work, please let me know. And we're going to push the answer to that first poll. It looks like a majority of our watchers already have Revit. Nice.
Y'all drank the Kool-Aid. Awesome.
And the next question is a little more of a fun one. Are you working from home? Yes or no? I guess it could not be a fun one depending on your circumstances.
Right.
And we'll hold that up. Gabe is a seasoned veteran of working from home. He's been doing it for about 5 years now.
5 years now. We started in the transition to Applied Software. Our offices started closing down, so we started to travel more and just basically work out of the house. So I have my own home office, so that's a good thing. I can close the door.
And I have camped out in the kitchen for now, and we will see what happens.
Yeah, tried the whole from the couch and from different relaxing places, but it doesn't work.
I get you.
All right, so looks like we're getting a lot of people working from home.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And make sure to push any questions, put them in our Q&A below. But other than that, I'm turning it all over to Gabe.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. Kind of to get into the feature functionality or what's new to what you can expect from the Revit 2020 product in fabrication or for fabrication. We have the fabrication exports is really going to be what I'm going to show you, kind of go through the longest in here during this presentation. There's some new features that kind of popped up when I've upgraded from 19 to 20 or when you open up a project in 2020 for the first time, you'll see some new features that kind of pop up, and we'll talk about them. Some cool or new, what's also good and new to duct and pipe for both Revit and Revit families and ITMs is now we have this elevation from level parameter for tags and schedules and other things. So you can now see the offsets. They relabeled a lot of the elevation parameters. So you'll see instead of, where it says middle offset, middle elevation, those types of things, I'll kind of show that to you here in a second when I bring up the program. For non-hosted families, they now have an offset from host. Again, parameter that's going to be very helpful. You guys and gals that have been working with hosted families and linked models know if you guys are, the project isn't static and you're getting updates, there's always a hassle with orphan families or non-hosted families or families that gone non-hosted on you or orphaned. The offset with non-hosted families makes it a little bit easier to control those things like terminals and other things that are hosted to like ceilings in the project. And then, of course, the PDF underlay is a new feature to Revit 2020 only. And the reason why I bring it up is because recently one of our clients mentioned to us in training, it was a custom training, and they were a mechanical firm, and they only get PDFs for certain projects, and they basically have to kind of build it from scratch. They'd love to have some kind of converter from PDF to fabrication parts like we have in Revit, but currently that's not possible. But at least being able to bring in PDFs and not having to convert those into images first into the Revit environment. And then I'll show you some cool tricks with it, when you do bring them in, how to use them, how to bring them in, what to look out for, best practices as well. And then, of course, what's been fixed. There's been some improvements to the change service feature. I used to show this in training. It was basically would break things by just changing size and service in the feature, but now it's pretty much works just as needed. And then, of course, the parts for large models, the edit parts dialog box, sometimes that would take a minute to open up in a large project. They've basically improved that. And that's not something I can show you here, but it's something that you guys should take note of, right? The first thing that I want to do before while we get into the project here, into Revit, is to kind of go over this extensions. This is really the big new thing to fabrication. And basically what you can do is do data exports as well, not just the MAJs or the reports, but you can actually export to a CSV file format or TXT file. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you guys here today. Let me show you let me show you how this works here. Now, another thing about this, once we get into this here in a second, is down here at the bottom, the file location. This one got me because I couldn't figure out where these files were going. So I'll show you where that is on my system so you guys can kind of take note of this when you're in a project. The database that I'm currently using in this model is the Revit out-of-the-box v2.2 content. Just got some services in here in this sample file. One of the things that I don't like about this feature is the sequence that you use to kind of run the command. And what you have to do is you basically have to make a selection first. And I'll select all my ductwork first. Now, if you're new to fabrication in Revit and you're not using this filter, so let me show you this. This is one of the first things we learn in training is my filter selection. I always just pick everything and filter out, right? It'll give me a running count down here at the bottom of everything. It also kind of shows me here in my properties. And if you don't see the filter in your ribbon, which you should, it's always going to live down here at the bottom right-hand corner in my status bar, where at the very bottom corner too, if I cancel this and click on this little icon, that'll bring up my selection filter as well. And that's just going to help you pick on things quicker, swap things out. It's a productivity trick, and we do this a lot in my training. So it kind of gets to I can hear virtual eye rolls, but it's something that you guys can do to kind of speed things up. All right, so once I've made my selection, right, then I go to the add-ins tab over here, and at the very end of the ribbon is this fabrication exports. This is the new feature here, and typically what you would do is just use your export fabrication data. Now, because again, if your database doesn't currently have these data setups or these forms set up, or these they're not reports, they're exports. But if they're not set up in your current database, then you have to set them up from scratch. And what I mean by that is if I click on export fabrication data, you'll notice that I don't have anything in here. There are no exports defined. Please set them up first, right? So what I can do is I'll go back to this option up here and I'll do the item data export. I'll use a setup. And it's basically wizard driven, so just like most things in Revit, where you just kind of answer questions, right? So I can create a new export format here. I can skip the report setup, but I actually want to use the setup first. If I already have them built, I can skip it. Okay. Now here, just like a report in fabrication and in Revit, you basically just start to type in, what you're looking for. I just type in the abbreviations or the beginnings of the term, and then I select on it. So I'm going to want to put in quantity. And at the bottom, you can't double click these like you can with Revit schedules. You have to use in Revit, these are green and red arrows to add and remove for schedules and services as well. So you'll use this add and remove buttons here, use object or remove object, and then the order top to bottom, move up and move down here on the right-hand side. All right, so I'll just put in a couple here. Let's see. Fill. Highlight it. CID. Service type. It takes a little bit, but the cool thing about this, just like you have with Revit schedules, and the reason why I'm going through this is because this is just a basic getting things started with if you don't have anything set up. But typically, if you do already have them set up, you don't have to go through this. And once you've done it and set it up for the first time, you can use it for every project from here on out. They'll be in this list, so you can use it as a go by or a just a typical data export for, company standard. Some costing in here. And let's see. Oh. Rate. Go. Material weight fabrication rate. Once you've selected all of the item fields here, then I can just click on next down at the bottom. And here is where you can get real fancy with it. Please specify the criteria that the data must meet to appear in the report. That's this here on the left-hand side. And then each one of these has a set of tabs here that you can use to configure. For the contents, what is the description actually going to look like? It's just going to say QTY instead of item quantity or item quantity and length. What is it going to look like unit-wise, right? How many decimal points of precision here? Minimum and maximum. Can do your rounding up or down or to the nearest, justify, and then showing your units and data. Now, each one of these has its own settings, right? Columns as well. I have the order here. I have a calculation, a field option here, and then, of course, a filter field where I can add some filtering in here for these for this so I can get just the information that I need. Once I'm done, and I'm not going to modify all these in here, but I'm just going to take the defaults. I'm going to click on next. Then it says on this last option here, the database output format, do not keep the changes made to this format or save this format for future use, right? So here is where you could actually label it, your company standard, ASTI typical data export, template or something like that. You can You can create something, or not even do all this here, just use your company brand there. And I always, if you've ever been through my training, I tell everybody this about the branding, right? And what I mean by branding is put your initials or something in front of this or at the end of it. It keeps it organized in Revit. It keeps them all grouped together. And when your new users come in to use this stuff, they'll know to use the company initials, instead of one that's doesn't have that on there, because they'll know that that's the company standard. All right. I'll just click on next here. And then of course, this is kind of where you can configure it to output, different TXT format. This is where you can change it to a CSV, right? I'll actually create a CSV, comma delimited characters, semicolon spaces, perform export now. I've got some options here, header rows and all this here. The secret or the key to this one is to where you're going to output the actual TXT file or CSV. Right now, because I'm in my out of the box database, right? It's going to put it right here. Here, this template's going to be right into this folder that I might not want it to be in, right? So I'll go back over to my fab exports here, and I'm just going to call this webinar test. I'll click on save and then finish this out. Now I'm going to do that one more time, and this time when I go to run that process, I'm just going to export fabrication data. And you'll see that now you have your template there, right? And whatever you want to label it, available. I'll select on export and then click on OK, and it'll create the same thing. Okay. So let me go back over here and kind of show you what it looks like. This is the CSV format. Right. So you can then take this out to, whatever software or other type formats you need, other solutions for fabrication, but you can get all this information in and out of the project as well. So you can't, not just reporting and not just in schedules, you can use these data exports as well to kind of get this stuff out. I did it to CSV format. There's a way of doing this to a text format. So let me do this. I'll save it. Yes, and back here. If I go back to set up a new one, when you go to set up a new one, you can create a new export format or use the existing one. This is where you would use that template. If I create a new one here, I'll go back and do the same thing. This time I'm just going to do a couple. Oh, come on. I always type in the wrong letters here. So I'll just don't hit enter. I'll do quantity and CID. Oh, source is one that I missed. I'll move that up. Now I'll just have these three fields here, and I'll just go and again accept the default settings here for configuration. I will not use this, do not keep this configuration because it's just going to be a one-off. I'll go next here, and this time I'm going to leave it TXT. And let me do this here. Let me do webinar test 2 and finish it. Now this is what I've noticed on this one here. On this export, it's a TXT file, so this might be sufficient, right? But if you try to open this up in Excel, and I'm just going to take the defaults. It kind of jumbles it all up. It does it into one cell like this, right? So what you kind of have to do here, if you don't do it as a CSV, what I found was you can do it this way. Oh, come on. Let me do that again. There's just you have to choose the formatting. See if it allows me to do it again. I go here, all files, here. I'd go next, and then instead of tab delimited, I'd use comma delimited. You can actually see the preview down here at the bottom that it breaks it up from when I remove comma, it doesn't see the commas there, right? When I add the comma, it actually breaks it up into the cells, and then finish this out. And now I've got my 3 different cells. So again, I'm not an Excel guru, so you guys might know a little bit more than me about this here and how to make that better. But it's just something, a couple of things that I want you to pick up that I've seen while I was working with this or learning how this thing worked, this process worked. Okay, get the information out. All right, let me save this stuff and get out of here. So this is really the latest and greatest feature to the fabrication extensions. If you do not have these fabrication extensions on your system, on your Revit, it's because you don't have Fabrication CADmep 2020 installed. So the key to getting these extensions and the RME to Fab, or the design line exporter, in your add-ins tab is to have the same version of Revit and Fabrication CADmep on the same computers. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind if you don't see these up here. And what you're looking for in your desktop app here, this is how we manage our updates. And this is, again, it's why it's really important that you guys sign into your accounts, your Autodesk accounts. They're free. You should be using your work email. But there's an updates here, my updates, and I have an old one here from the previous version that I didn't need. Let's see, where are you here? It's kind of like this one here, the Revit extensions for 2018, but it'll say the Revit fabrication extensions for Revit 2019 and 2020, right? That's the key to installing these updates. So looking for that extensions or this tab for this process, it's going to be in here if you don't have it already installed on your system. Okay. If it doesn't show up in here, then get with your software coordinators who divvy out the licensing and give you the rights to use the software. They just need to set that up on their end to allow you those updates. So keep that in mind. It might still might not, you might have all of the software, but you still don't have them showing up. It is, again, because they haven't been released to you because of your user rights with the software. Okay. And just real quick, AutoCAD 2021, AutoCAD Architecture and AutoCAD MEP are out right now. But Fabrication, CAD MEP, for us, we're still in 2020. We don't have 2020. This is a CAD product. So I would think, because all the CAD products were updated, even some of the verticals, that CAD MEP would be, but it's not currently. So we're still waiting for that to come out. And Revit 2021 is still not out yet. Okay. All right. So kind of getting back to the fabrication side of things. This is the latest and greatest new thing here. Now, the next thing that I want to show you real quick that's new to 2020, that's absolutely new, is this PDF underlay. Let me go back here to the Insert tab. Now, under the Insert tab, you have, under the Import panel here, this PDF option. When I click on the PDF option here, I can choose individual PDFs, or this is kind of a combined PDF, which is kind of cool. I'm going to choose that one. And what you can do is you can actually, if you have a PDF that has multiple sheets in it and you're only needing a specific PDF sheet there, you can select the one that you want. There's a couple of different views here. You can kind of cycle through all 4 of them there. You can do a grid pattern, and you can see what page you're on or you're selected here. Another cool thing about the PDFs, unlike with images, bringing them into the Revit environment, is, they can be detrimental to a project. They can kind of reduce performance quite a bit, So if they're high in DPI is what we call, or what we say, 300, 600, that should be good enough. 150 even, if you're just using PDFs. And again, the workflow that I'm kind of showing you here is something that we've been getting away from for years, but we still have clients, or I still have clients that only get CAD backgrounds, 2D, or even, like I said, with projects that are getting just PDFs and they've got to redesign the entire thing and coordinate it. So with PDFs being now native to Revit 2020, it kind of it gives them a little bit more streamlined process, because they don't have to go and convert PDFs to images just to get them in here. And you can control them a little bit better. Notice this, if I set it to like 300 DPI, that should be good enough, and I'll click on OK here. Now, when you place these in the project, I'm going to show you something here. I might have to move it off to the side a little bit. Takes a minute, you know, depending on the resolution. Again, it's these things you got to kind of make sure that they're all nice and cleaned up. I'm just going to slap this one right over here, right over the other one there. I'm going to delete it anyway. But one thing that you can see here is that when you can place it right now, when you place it and you get a warning, typically in their visibility and graphics, these are considered what we call raster images. This is a new setting now. So when you place them into the project, you won't see them. They'll be blank like this here. So you'll have to go into VG and turn on your raster images. And raster images are what we consider PDFs now. Okay, so if you guys are taking any kind of notes, that's a good one. And PDFs are going to be, you're interested in them. Remember that they're raster images, because you're going to try to bring it in and it's not going to show up, and you're going to bring it in and bring it in and bring it in, and you have like 20 of them on top of each other, and it's going to go from about 100 megabytes to 300 megabytes. So try not to break it. All right. So be careful when you're bringing in PDFs. Also up here, look at my screen too. On the insert tab, there's under manage images. I have this image manager where I can I can manage the PDF. I can place a new instance of it if I need to add a different one. Here's the combined one. I can reload from, delete, or add, or just reload it if needed. There's even a path option here. But even better is this. Look up on the screen. If I pick on this, I pin it down so I don't want them to move. But up here in the ribbon, at the very end of the ribbon, I have the send to front, send to back. That's cool, right? Getting the display order set up. Here's my manage image again, so I can manage them there. But best thing here is this enable snaps, depending on how they were created. So I think if they were created from like a CAD file, right, or a DWG, there might be some metadata that I can snap to. So I enable snaps on the PDFs, and what I can then do is go in here and with either ITMs or fabrication parts, or I'm sorry, Revit families. Let's see, what is this going to be? About 8 inches. And let's put this up at about 10 feet. T10, 10 feet. And, whoa, 96. So I can then use that to kind of trace this design or this layout here. I didn't get it too well, but it kind of snaps along to it. Okay, so you can enable snapping here if I get it right. Get some really nice drawings in here, get it set up. Okay. Another thing about PDFs here is, again, make sure that when you're done with them, you can get rid of them. If you look over here in the properties, you'll see some options here, lock proportions, if it's a background on the foreground. But once you're done with them, don't just leave them in the project, right? You want to get rid of them or delete them out of the project when you're finished. Don't just leave them lingering, because all that's going to do is just increase file size and kind of reduce performance, and you don't want to leave that stuff lingering on. Use it for what you need it for, and then kind of move on, right? Go back over here. So those are the two newest features to Revit 2020 that I think for fabrication users you can use if you're already used to Revit. Everything else has pretty much just been kind of fixed or enhanced, the features that are currently in here. But I did learn some new tricks of the trade, training some some classes this year and from my peers, so I'm going to share those with you as well. So this is kind of like the tips and tricks part of this. Let me kind of go back through this first before I forget and kind of walk through this real quick. Hold on one second. So the file export location, if you can't find these export files when you try that out, right? Look here on this folder structure. Actually, let me pull it up on my screen. If I can pull one up here. It should be under your C, and sometimes you might not even have this kind of access, right? But it's C users, public, documents, Autodesk, and then the version of fabrication. In this case is 2020. And then your database, right? So I'm using the out-of-the-box Imperial one. I'll use this one, go here to here, and it's under the MIS, CADmep, and there's that ASTI export templates. Or when you start to see all those templates or you want to manage those, maybe pull them out from the computer that they were created on, so that you could put them on maybe a network share or something and have everybody path to them. If you want to have everybody use them, or put them in where your database ones are. If I use my company database, you'll see all our reports options in here as well when we run the database exports. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about real quick is probably my number one support case that I get for fabrication users. And again, this has been around for a little bit, but there's a rule that not a lot of people are aware of when you're working with fabrication, the database and the Revit model, right? Especially when you're in what we call a work shared environment, or that whole central file, local file thing, right? Work sets. So the first rule, and this is kind of one of the things that I mentioned to everybody, is if you're in a work shared environment, which that means if you have a central file, local file situation, right? And changes need to be made to the configuration. What is the fabrication configuration? That's the database, right? And I'm finding this out coming from the Revit side to fabrication world, that most firms, or a lot of firms, have 3, 4, 5 users all randomly updating the database at the same time or at different times throughout the project. And that's the way it used to work, and it used to be fine with no issues in the AutoCAD realm. In the Revit realm, because work sharing is something new, this central file, local file is a whole new process. It's causing issues. It's hanging up the database. It's locking you out. It's kind of, if you ever try to reload the database or reload the configuration and it's grayed out and it won't let you reload, it's because something happened like this and it wasn't, the rules weren't followed. So what do you do when changes have to be made to the database and you're in this central file, local file situation with work sets, right? Well, this is what everybody's supposed to do. This is rule number 1, and I'll show you where it's located in a second. All users that are in the model should synchronize to update the model with the latest and greatest updates, right? And then get out of the file. Once that's done, one person, not everybody, or not Joe and Bob and Rick and Tim, not everybody do their own. One person basically synchronizes to make sure that the changes have been updated, reloads the config to make sure that the database has been reloaded and you're getting the updates into that project kind of updated, right? Then you can add and remove services, save it, and then everybody can create new local files or synchronize, open their locals, and it'll have the latest and greatest stuff. So if you guys aren't doing that now, that's where really, if you're having issues. Now, I've been told by some clients that they've been doing it without this process and it works. It might be that they're not doing it at the same time, or that they only have 3 users and it's just so happens that they're not doing it at the same time or with somebody else in the model, right? So I've been told that it's possible to go through without this, but this is the big one. This is the one that I'm answering on a weekly basis for fabrication clients. And just to kind of show you something real quick about this, if you guys you remember this rule, but you want to show everybody or have everybody kind of read this, when you go to your fabrication settings here to load in your database, at the very bottom is a hyperlink. Anytime you're in a Revit dialog box and you see a hyperlink, that's a help or a resource. When you pick on that hyperlink, the web page that pops up and is the help menu, right? And the very first number one on here is if you're work sharing in a work shared environment and changes need to be made to the configuration, right? It's exactly what I had there in my slide. So basically, these are the rules, and this is what they tell you. Rule number one when working with fabrication databases and services when you're loading them and updating them in the Revit environment. Okay, so just be careful there when you guys are doing that. And if you need some more information or you need to kind of understand more of the process, feel free to hit us up or ask the questions and we'll kind of point you in the right direction. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that a point here in this webinar while I had the chance, because I want to make sure I can educate everybody out there to kind of make sure you're doing the right thing, or at least kind of sound the alarm if you're not. All right. So that's my lecture for the day of the kind of wagging the finger, like you guys got to do this stuff, right? The next thing that I want to show you and kind of wrap things up here, we've only got a little bit of time left, is to go through a couple of the tips and tricks that I've kind of picked up throughout the last year in training, so that I can kind of give you guys some new stuff. If it's not new, it might be new to some of you, but it might be some old stuff to some of you as well. So let me show you what I have here. Now, on this side over here, I have Revit families, right? This is Revit family pipe. And then over here, I have my ITM pipe. And I just kind of made this weird example right here just to kind of prove or show this. And this could be done with both duct and pipe as well, okay? I'm just going to use a pipe example for this because I've kind of figured this out on the go with the client here. So with Revit pipe, right, I can use my parallel pipe runs or parallel pipes to use or to do a parallel set of runs, right? But notice how when I did my picks here, I can use the Revit parallel pipes, because some of you with fabrication are still using Revit families for pipes, and maybe not for duct, but for pipes, you can still use Revit stuff. But notice when I do this parallel run, it doesn't complete that connection, right? Now, if I hover and tab, right, which is my productivity trick here, parallel pipes, hover tab to pick that run, it'll create the parallel run, right? But I can't do that with fabrication parts. See that? So let me undo this real quick. So with fabrication parts, there is no parallel runs tool. So what do? Now you can do this with both duct and pipe. The good old modify tab here, and we're going back to my old AutoCAD ways, the good old offset command. The offset command, it's got the little thumbs up here. Basically what you do is you give it an offset number here, and then you can hover over the geometry, right? Now here's the key to the selection here, and this is where you got to be very careful. If I hover over the middle, the center line here, and go center up or center top, it's going to offset the blue line to the top. If I just move my cursor right below the center line, center down, the blue dotted line appears at the bottom, right? So that's basically the direction of offset. So what I can do is do this. Now notice here, I don't have to pick the hover tab here because I can do this. And look what it does with the offset command. It cleans it up for Revit pipes and for fabrication. I did it too many times. Okay, so maybe if you're running parallel runs like this, you can use, and this is just for a single stack, right? Not for, top and bottom, but for fabrication parts, at least for duct and pipe, as long as you got the offset correct, where you got enough space there, you can run the offset command to run parallels. So I'll just do one, and it put the, I found this one out kind of by accident using the offset command as a training exercise, and that it was putting in the fittings for me and cleaning it up. Sometimes if you get too close though, it does some funky stuff like that. You see that right there? So you got to watch out when you're doing your selections here. But all I did was kind of pick over here too close, and just does some weird stuff sometimes, but it kind of, again, will speed up that whole parallel process, right? So that's a little tip there that I learned this year, kind of by accident, but then this part down here was from an actual student that we worked our way through this. So we had a underground conduit runs, and so pipe was the same thing, or round duct, right? And they were stubbing up or stubbing down or dropping. Now, again, this is Revit families on the left and ITMs on the right. So what I would do to align this stuff here, if I had this fittings here, as a matter of fact, let me actually do this here. Here's a cool trick for Revit pipe. I need to draw, put a fitting on this end down, right? I look at my middle elevation here. This is that new value. You've got middle elevation and top elevation and bottom elevation exposed now. I just need to go down a foot. So I'm going to go down to 11 and hit apply. And it'll throw in a fitting with the drop. Now, because I'm at 11 and I pick on this end, I click on it and I just hit apply. It draws it from 11 up. So that's a foot back up and gives me a connection there. Now, I'm also going to do this, though. I need to take the risers out of there or get rid of those pieces. And then for fabrication parts, all I've got to do is show service, put in some short stubbies. I'm using the space bar here to rotate this fitting down and down. Okay. All right. So now what do I want to do with this? What I want to do is I want to align these across and use what we call a reference plane. So in Revit, we don't have construction lines, and you shouldn't be using annotation detail lines for doing construction lines. What you should be using under the Systems tab over here on the very end is what we call a reference plane. Reference planes are used, notoriously by architects for, like construction lines, right? For kind of lining things up, center lines and things like that. And you can label them. So I can pick on this, and this is where I would label it. You can actually label it in the view, right? Just like that. Just type it in. But this will kind of allow you to see what we're going to do here. So I'm going to align these here. So another quick little tip before I do this here is on the quick access toolbar. There's two commands that I recommend for fabrication users to use or to add up here. Let me show you this. Let me remove them. The first one is on the Modify tab is the Align command, because I use the Align command all day. And I can type in AL, but that's just another command that I have to memorize. So what I do to add it up here to my quick access toolbar is I right click on it and use the add to add it up here, right? And then I can just pick on it whenever I need it. Get rid of it, I just right click on it again to remove it, right? So add and remove is real simple. This is really the only customization that we recommend in the Revit world, is just updating your quick access toolbar for tools that you might use daily or, frequently, I guess. The other one is on the Analyze tab is the Show Disconnects. This one's a good one because this is your check systems. This will allow you to see or check the integrity of the Revit model and even your fabrication model. You can check the disconnects for duct and pipe as well as hangers that are disconnected. And what it does is with the disconnects, show disconnects here, it's going to display all my open ends wherever there are open ends. So I've got disconnects over here. I've got disconnects over here. And I've got disconnects over here, of course, right, which I already knew. But this kind of shows you the integrity of the model. Like before you do a convert or design to fab, you would turn that on to see what the Revit model looks like, if it's well connected. If it's not, you do your best to reconnect where you can and then design to fab, and that will give you a lot better conversion as well. So it's a little bit extra work, but it's a good place to kind of check things, right? And the reason why I put it up here is because you barely are going to come into the Analyze tab, and it's over here on the end. It's kind of hiding. So I put it in the Quick Access toolbar so I can get to it and turn this stuff off so that those yellow triangles of hope kind of go away, okay? So I put the Align command back up there and my Show Disconnects. So let me show you what I was going to get to here. So if I use the Align command and I pick on the reference plane, this is why I created it, and I pick on the center line of this fitting, right, just to get it to line up. I go here and do the next one. You see how it kind of lines it up where I picked, and it kind of breaks this offset, kind of defeats that whole purpose, right? And then if I do it over here to the fabrication parts, it does exactly what I want it to do, right? So what I want you guys for fabrication to take away from is with fabrication parts, you can use the align command to this little dot or this square, which is kind of the connector, and you can align the connectors when you're working with fittings like this. If you've got to align it, if it's facing up or drops or risers or whatever, and you want to align things up, you can use the align command for that. Now for Revit, well, what would I do? Let me show you this. Let me undo this here, go back to the way it was. With Revit, this is the trick that a student showed me. I was having to basically cut it back and then trim it out and then put the fitting in and then drag the fitting, right, or align the fitting or move it, and it was just pretty difficult. But basically selecting on a fitting and dragging the connector back, you'll see that it gives you the blue dotted line center, and when I hit the reference plane, it lights it up. Pick on it, drag the connector back, and drag the connector back, it kind of stays in line. So what I want you to take note of here is that for Revit pipe work, you want to grab the fitting and drag the fitting. The fitting will allow you to move that in position, and it'll snap correctly too to where you have your construction lines, right? It takes a little bit of practice there, but with the good thing is with the fabrication parts, you can use the align command here to do what we're trying to do here, and it knows what you want to do. Okay, shorten that up to drag that fitting back. Okay, so parallel or offsets for parallel runs, and the align commands to reference planes for fabrication parts, right? And for Revit parts, if you guys are still using it, drag the fittings. Make sure you grab a fitting. Don't drag the pipe end, drag the fitting, and it will snap to that end pretty easily for you. Okay. All right. Now, before I get into my slope pipe, I'll do the pipe at the end here. Let me show you this trick that I learned. This is from a fellow instructor. So with Revit families, you cannot drag the throats of a squared elbow like this, right? And when I use the optimize links command, optimize links, I get weird breaks, right? I'll undo that. I needed that break there. But sometimes you get weird breaks like this here where it's split it up, okay? And so what I was doing in the past was doing this, removing that, right? And then grabbing this arrow, not the dot, because the connector, I can do this here, but all that's good, and that sometimes fixes it, right? But sometimes that just adds that additional piece back. What you do is you grab the arrow, and when I drag the arrow, I just couldn't get it to snap correctly. You see how I'm not getting it to snap, right? Over here, if I drag the arrow here, it's not letting me do it just with that precision that I want. And that was kind of a pain to me, right? So what I was doing was double clicking on this here, and let me stretch this back out. I have my top and bottom extensions, which are those throats, right? So I would make this like an even number, say 1'2", right? So now I've got it rounded off to a 1'2", and then I would drag this one back to connect. And that's kind of how I was doing it in the past. Well, what you can do is now for both throats and for transitions, all you really have to do is you don't have to remove this. You grab that arrow here, that the adjustment, and you just drag beyond. You can stop because it stops you automatically, but just kind of drag beyond and it'll automatically clean it up for you itself. The same thing with transitions like this back here. I can pick on this transition and use that arrow there, drag it kind of beyond and let go, and it'll remove that extra segment and stretch the actual transition. Okay. That was a kind of a cool one that we kind of went through this one here, but I tried this one and it worked the same way. So that was a good one that I thought you guys should learn. The next one is what we call, for you guys that are plumbers. So in this view, for this plumbing view, this is again not correct. I'm gonna erase it all out here in a minute and put in some carrots so I can show you my slope trick. But for this view, the problem is, and this is what I show all my students, is under the view range here, because this is underground or below grade or below ground piping or PVC, the view range specifically for a floor plan like this is set up to stop right at the top surface of the structure or the floor. So everything in yellow here you don't see, which would be typically my below ground sanitary lines that are at whatever slope values. But right now it's set to 0. So what you would do is you would set this to -4 feet, -4 feet, and hit OK, and you'll automatically and magically all your pipes underground show up, right? But in some cases, when you're working in a multi-story structure, you can't just set the whole floor, the whole view to 4 feet. There might be a portion of this where it's only really at 1'6" that you need to kind of to display. So what can you do to kind of affect that separately? Look up on the screen. That's where these come in. On the View tab here under Plan Views, this thing right here called the Plan Region. A plan region allows you to create a like a window or a box or a shape like this here, so that you can separate out have two different view ranges. So what I would do with the plan region here is use my shapes. I can draw in multiple shapes here. I'm going to use the rectangle to grab this chase, and I would fill in the chase with the plan region. And in that plan region, or just in that chase, in my properties over here, I would set the view range for it to be -4. So I only see -4 feet in the chase or below, and everything else kind of is not going to display. And then I'll finish this out, and I just exposed that area with this plan region. And that's what a plan region is made for. It's for controlling a portion of the model so that you can kind of set the view range a little bit different, so mezzanines and other things like that, but it's specifically for plumbing. This is going to be one of my big plumbing tricks or plumbing tips for my plumbing users, is they can use these here to kind of keep the rest of the model displaying, the way it's supposed to, okay? All right, so we did plan regions. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is this, and let me just delete this stuff. And this should kind of wrap us up anyway. This should be pretty quick. Go back here to systems. I'm going to put in, and again, I don't recommend any fancy stuff here or any manufacturer specific content. This is just something that we used in the training class, and I wanted to kind of show you what I teach all my other guys and gals with this process here. All right, let me show you something. Copy this one here, and then this is why I use the align command up here. Align, bam, 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 and then go through that pretty quickly. And then I can even align centers here. Oh, come on. I think they're already aligned. All right. Let me fix this one. So one thing that I've noticed about this here with slope pipe is this here in Revit. Let me cut this section through here. And there still isn't a way to set that default on your sections, the windows, right? There's still no way to do this. You gotta set this up so you guys can see this in action. Wireframe. All right. So this is my high end, this is my low end. And what we would do to kind of work through this here is I would set up my service. I would draw in my multi-point routing, set my slope down to 1/4 inch. And I would start out of this carrier here. I would slope up, slope down, 1/4 inch. Okay, what's going on here? Might be my model. Here we go, slope down. It's locked in over here. There we go. This is gonna work for both Revit and Revit parts and fabrication items either way. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. These families are all jacked up. Not typically jacked up like this here. Let me do this real quick. Let me just draw it in from this side. These are set to hydronic. I don't know why they're set to hydronic. They should be set to supply or sanitary. See if that works. And of course, this is kind of the problem when it comes to custom content, right? It's not going to, sometimes it just won't connect. Okay, regardless, let me show you what I want. I can show it to you this here without really connecting it anyway. So the point that I was trying to show you guys is this here. When you draw in slope pipe, right, and you drag it like this to kind of extend it or reconnect, maybe I want to drag it from corner to corner, right? If I go into the values over here, into the properties, you'll see that the slope sometimes gets, it kind of gets out of whack. And what you would need to do here to kind of fix this is, let me kind of move these into play here, see if this even works. See this right here? See why it's got 4 and change over 12 in the slope, right? It won't keep a specific value. So what you want to do is, and I might have been drawing from the wrong direction anyway. Let's see if this works. There it goes. Probably, I guess I was in the wrong face. So see how it's 1/4 inch here, right? And when I drag it back, I need to align this first. So I'll go to dot to centers. There. You're looking for the SX command here. For an SX is my snap endpoint. But what I did was I just connected this 1/4 inch slope together now, right? But now look at the slope, how it's all jacked up. 15/64 over 12, right? So what we found to fix this was to just go ahead and delete it. Once you've worked out that distance, right? Get rid of it with the proper slope, and then you can draw connector to connector, SX, to grab that connector, and it'll maintain that 1/4 inch slope. So if you're dragging apart after the fact, it's going to really jack up the slope value. And to avoid that, you basically delete it and recreate it from connector to connector, and it should automatically stay the proper slope value there, 1/4 inch. Okay. I think we're pretty much done for the day, but just a couple of things real quick that I can show you on productivity tricks. On the right-click menu, there's this command called Create Similar. There is also this one called Select All. I use these two quite a bit, Create Similar and Select All, because if I was trying to create another strap, I can pick on one, right-click and go to Create Similar, and I'm just putting in round straps. I pick on this square strap, right-click, Create Similar, and I'm placing in straps, right? Now, another one is the Select All Instances, and this is not right, but let me go back here, a couple undos, and then I'll kind of open this up. You do this. I'm just going to pick on one of these here, right-click, and select all instances of these half straps, and I can even swap it out to, say, a bearer. So once you've placed them, you can kind of swap them out from one to the other. I can take these round straps, select all instances, and then swap those out to a bearer as well, with some pretty quick timing there. Not that I would do that, but you can do that pretty quickly. Okay. All right. I think I'm running over my time.
Yeah, I do see we have a few questions here. Someone asked, what is the SX? I think I missed something.
Ah, good one. SX. If you look up here under the Manage tab under Snaps, SX is a point. So it's your MEP, you're not your MEP connectors, but it's your point. right? And when you're connecting in families like that, you want to connect to the point. So I use that quite a bit to connect if you can't grab that connector.
Another question is, and it was from earlier in the webinar, but are these export templates saved in Revit or are they saved in Fabrication?
They're both. They could be used in both. So if you already have them developed in Fabrication, they should show up in your Revit projects when you load in the database. But if you develop it in Revit, like I showed you in that directory, you should be able to utilize those in CADmep.
All right. And another question is, would you prefer we use PDFs for a background or perform a PDF to CAD convert and use the CAD file for the background?
The CAD file is probably going to give you more snap points than the PDF. It's just if you only got PDF, like some companies do, then you would use it and use that enable snaps. But I would use CAD. But keep in mind, though, the one thing about CAD, right, model space is vast. It's up to 10 points of decimal precision. So you can literally draw the solar system, the scale in model space. So if you bring in a CAD file that has like a node or a speck of sand, 20 miles or 21 miles in space, when you bring that CAD file into a Revit project, it's going to blow up. It's going to cause a fatal error. Revit is limited to 20 miles in space, unlike CAD where you've got unlimited or 10 points of decimal precision, which is pretty vast. So the only caveat to the CAD file that I would add is make sure you clean it up. Purge, audit, flatten, W block it out of the original file, create a new version of it, purge out as much as you can, and then use that in your projects. So there is a cleanup process there.
And one more question before we close out today. We're a little bit over. How did you get that snap menu?
Good question. So it's up here under the Manage tab, under Settings, Snaps. Like what we call object snaps in Revit. I mean in AutoCAD. And if you notice here, like in my old days, this is kind of dating me, I used to type in END for endpoint, MID, because we didn't have the ability to turn off running snaps way back when. And I would use NER and all that. Now you just type in SE, and that's like your 2 keystroke command. That will enable snap endpoint, SM, snap midpoint, SX for snap point. And then there's also some other ones down here. Shift, tab, and close is SZ. One last one for you guys real quick, if I can show this to you. This is a cool one. If you hold the control key down and the space bar and tap the space bar, it rotates the part in the other direction. So space bar does this, and we kind of worked through that, but holding the control and space together rotates it in the other direction. So it's kind of like a 3D rotate, which is kind of cool. Then you can rotate it this way and then rotate it that way, control space bar, right? That's another little tip that I just remembered.